Whenever ready? All good? So, welcome everybody in Davos 2020. We have learned a lot about sustainability, and we have a very interesting panel here. And I'm curious to hear about many, many things, because it's about YPO and the link to the ocean race, one of the biggest events in the world and the toughest events in the world in the sports arena. I have learned that after the FIFA and Olympics, it's the third biggest public event. And it's, of course, racing these boats every 4 years around the world in different ports, stopping, I think, 9 months overall. So, and I'm really excited to have, first of all, the chairman of the ocean race here. Richard, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We have Boris here, who is actually a world record holder in sailing, and he will tell us a little bit more. Yay. Yes, and we have Rokas, who has, actually both of them have raced in the past and are competing, so it's a good story, cutting edge. And Rokas, of course, from Lithuania, and I'll let you a little bit later also know the link, what he has to do specifically with YPO. Maybe starting, it's not just about the race, it's not just about the fun side, but it's also, there's a longer story behind where ocean race is actually linked, tied very closely, and having a clear footprint on the ocean health. Richard, maybe very quickly you introduce yourself, yeah? An elevator pitch about yourself, and then you tell your story a little bit about.
That's my wife. But no, my name is Richard Brisius, and I'm the race chairman of the ocean race. And I tell you, in the YPO organization, you have some great jobs, but I have one of the best jobs in the world because I get to work with some of the most complete athletes there are in the world, the ocean racers, and that's what drives me forward. And our stadium is the planet. So that drives me forward very much as well, the people and the planet. But my background is in this sport. I've been racing around the world myself a long time ago, in the old days, 30 years ago in this race. And since then, I've also been involved in business quite a bit, but I keep getting dragged back to this race, so I love it.
Thank you, Richard. So, and it's interesting, I mean, 28,000 YPOers in the world, and many, many love boats, love water, and a lot of us love sailing, so I'm curious to hear more. Boris, now tough side, you just won actually another award of the records, just I think yesterday, is it? And maybe quickly you give an intro on yourself, and then also what is it about that recent award?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a professional sailor. My name is Boris Herman. Our team is called Team Malizia, and we are aiming to compete in the ocean race. We are this year sailing around the world in a different race, the Vendée Globe race, where I sail alone. But these two races are complementary. The ocean race is a team race. It's all about the team, which is very important to us. So I'm, as a professional sailor, since more than 10 years, I've sailed 3 times around the world. I spend more than 100 days a year on average on the ocean. So I witness change. And I think with our sport, quite naturally, we have a sensibility for the beauty of nature, the ocean, and all these topics. And unlikely in any other activity, we can really witness on a global scale climate change. And for example, when we sail around the world and the Antarctic ice is melting because of the warming, is melting earlier in the southern hemisphere summer, the ice is drifting further north, the routes get longer, we stay longer at sea, and that's something we experience in a quite existential way. So that's why we as a team are committed to work on the issue of climate change.
Wonderful, and I want to pick your brain also. You had one of the, not yet, but you had a very famous passenger on your boat taking from Europe to the States and then back, and I would like to dig in a little bit later. Yeah, very young but very famous one. So Rokas, Lithuania, I've seen also you have raced a lot. You have, maybe less years, but you're stepping up and you're competing here again. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yes. So, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Rokas Milevičius. I'm from Lithuania, professional sailor, as Boris. a little bit competition here. But basically, yeah, I've been in Olympics, and after that, I turned my sails towards the offshore sailing, and I was lucky enough to qualify for one of the Volvo Ocean Race teams. We finished second, with a big goal in mind to win the race. So I learned a lot, like both sailing-wise, and it was the best school of my life. And it actually just kickstarted my sailing career as a professional. So now I'm part of the Umbersail 2 team, and we are working on putting our own campaign for the next Ocean Race edition.
Great, Rokas. So 2-3 questions to kick off. And by the way, my name is Florian Kemmerich, and I'm the chair of the Planet Action Network in YPO. So there's a reason. Maybe less the boat, even though I love boats, but more what you had just touched, Boris. So quick question is just on the race and how it works. Can you maybe frame it a little bit so that we all understand? We might have heard about it because formerly was, I think, the Volvo Ocean Race, and now it's your ocean race.
Yeah, it's an outstanding story because the race is almost 50 years old and it's a timeless idea. The first race was in 1973. The race course has been the same. You race around the world, leave Africa to port, leave Cape Horn to port, and then up to the finish in Europe. And it's held every 4 years. Next race starts in 2021, in the fall of 2021. And it's going to be an amazing race course stopping in 10 world cities, starting from Spain, going to Cape Verde, South Africa, China, New Zealand, Brazil, USA, Denmark, Holland, and then the grand finale in Italy, in Genoa. So, and we have 2 classes of boats. It's the VO65 class that Rokas will race. All boats are completely identical. And the IMOCA 60 boat that Boris is racing, which is a development class. So it's something for all sailors, if you wanted to go one design or R&D. And the beauty of this race, again, is the combination of human ambition, human endeavor. What these sailors go through is outstanding. It's the toughest test of a team in sport, I can tell you without doubt. And when you have raced together with a group of people, like the crew do, then you come together like you never do, not even in a family. So you're friends for life, or you don't want to meet ever again. But normally you tend to become friends for life. And that's what I love about it. And then, of course, our race course, that is the planet. And as Boris says, what the sailors see out on the ocean is stuff that no one else sees. No scientists, no media, no people on the shore. And the planet is to such a large extent about water. And I met Peter Thompson, he's the head of UN Oceans, the special envoy for the General Secretary of the United Nations. Very knowledgeable about anything around the oceans. And I met him last night, and he said it was thanks to this race that he got about awareness, that he first heard about the issue of plastic in the oceans. And we must remember that. So in our race for the next edition, we have put sustainability at the very heart of the race. For us, it's natural. It's been part of our DNA since 1973, for sure. So it's not so strange. But if I tell you a little bit about my journey in this race, so I started as a young 20-year-old and managed to get a spot on a boat and raced around the world on this Italian boat. It was. I'm Swedish from Stockholm, but that's a lot of nice stories around that trip. I loved it. But then I went on to manage teams, and then I went on to manage the race. And then, as it happens, Volvo were looking for a new owner of the race 2-3 years ago. And in a contest, in the end, we won the right to own the race. So I would never have expected that when I was 20 years old, that I would end up in this ownership of the race. But then we asked ourselves, me and Johan Salén, my partner in this, what shall we do with the race? It's the most outstanding platform in the world. And we were very clear, well, our purpose, we have one shot on this planet, and we're going to focus this race totally on the planet. So this is racing for purpose. That's what we're talking about. We have 3 big programs. One is around science, where we have science equipment on board all the boats that tests for a variety of parameters. And for example, last race we tested for microplastics around the world. Very important data, but very sad data, because even in the point that you can go the furthest from land, called Point Nemo, you're closer to the space stations when you're out there, there were microplastics in the water. And we expand this science program for the next edition. And then we have a big education program where we have for grammar schools, for kids around the world, translated to 9 languages. That's expanding. It's over 100,000 kids doing that. And then, of course, well, I can go on for a long time about this. Sorry,
I see that, yes.
I'm not making your job easy. But if anything, now we are really focusing on what can we do with this race. Because to end off then, so because sport has this power to change the world. That's what Nelson Mandela said. Sport has the power to change the world. Sport has the power to inspire. And sport has a particular ability to make young people understand and attract the inspiration of young people. So we are very fortunate to work in sport because it is a wonderful platform.
So Richard, this is exciting. Now, you're all racers. 2 categories, so not really competing, is it, understand?
No.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we can cheer both of you up. That is good, number one. So Boris, quickly, we all recognized, maybe not everybody, that you sailed Greta Thunberg from Europe to the US and then back, with all the stories around it, and the positive and the negatives and the whatever the web is, but again, you standing out of the crowd. How did that arrive, and why did you do this? It wasn't a race, it was just a journey with a passenger, or what? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, it has a long history for us as a team. I mentioned I have sailed around the world a couple of times. I have seen these changes 10 years ago. It took me on one non-stop race around the world 10 days longer than expected because of the ice going so far north. And I didn't have enough food for 10 days. So that's something you don't forget. And it is really existential and something I was very curious about. We also, on these different journeys, had school classes following our races, but that was occasionally one class here, one class there, and it was a great exchange that gave a lot of energy back to us on the ocean. Kids asking with their curiosity about what animals are around. They knew often better than us the names of birds or species where we sent pictures back to the land. So that we institutionalized a little bit along the way. We made the Malizia Ocean Challenge with an educational program and a science program that was inspired by the ocean race. What they had started was tremendous and beautiful, and we learned from that and took on with some of the same scientists parts and elements of these programs. And that developed, and quite naturally it converged in an historic moment. Really, we have to see it like that, where Greta wanted to go to New York in a zero-emission way. We had transformed our boat to zero emission with solar panels and water turbines. We are racers in the first place, and we did that because it helped our performance. It makes us 300 kilograms lighter, which we otherwise would have in fuel. So this is also a great example of sometimes how renewable energies or things like that can just, sustainability will bring us further and longer, over a longer time. So was things that we were working on, and then Greta was asking on Twitter, how can I go to New York to the UN Climate Action Conference? And people were suggesting balloons, zeppelins, dog sleds across the North Pole, and so on. And a couple of sailors, of course, offered their boats, and we were the boat sticking out, zero emission, fast enough to go around the tropical depressions or hurricanes. It was hurricane season. So with the safety factor included in these very safe racing boats with all the professionalism behind. And we had a great trip together. But what was really interesting is how it was perceived and received. We had tremendous support also from the ocean race, from the community of the sailing, from different other athletes. The media was very receptive. Of course, there was also very interesting criticisms, discussions. I learned personally a lot. And it was like a peak in raising awareness, really. For me, it's a step to think beyond that, saying, okay, we can raise awareness, but it's really interesting now to think about raising awareness for solutions. together with our partners as well, together with the Ocean Race and the other teams, to showcase solutions that we're all going to use on these race villages. How can we make, for example, a more sustainable race village, or the logistics around the whole race, and our own team thinks. And change always needs at the starting point awareness, and then we can find solutions.
So that's interesting. Now, if you come from the pure race itself, Rokas, so what you are preparing yourself to the next race, correct?
Correct.
Which is in a year and a half, basically. So tell us about how do you prepare yourself? How big is the team? What do you have to do from here to there to be ready to race? And how likely you believe you're going to win?
Yeah, good question.
No
I
pressure.
think everybody wants to win. At least that's the goal of any sailor, especially in the ocean race. There's like the fame and glory of the whole race. But just to know a little bit more details about the race itself, as Richard mentioned, there are going to be 2 classes, and also there'll be a little bit different amount of people sailing on each boat. There's also like sustainability measures of renewable energy, like 30% on one boat, 20% on the other boat. There's like certain rules to be applied, and same goes to the crew. And the idea for our boat, for Volvo VO65, is that there have to be 10 people on board. Out of these 10 people, 3 have to have ocean race or similar experience approved by the ocean race. Then 6 has to be under 30, and 3 out of these has to be under 26 years old. And 1 has to be, we call it wild card, which is kind of aimed to the Olympic sailors who put their whole career into the sport of becoming an Olympians. And actually there's no go for them because this sport requires a lot of experience of sailing offshore, so that actually closes them doors. So this rule makes the team really young, and one of the biggest challenges is to get the experienced people in, and experienced people which you can trust, with whom you can sail this kind of race and to take into this kind of adventure, and of course try to win the race. So starting early and started collecting and checking the teams. And one more thing which I almost forgot, there has to be 3 female sailors on board between these 10 people. So that's also a new challenge, going to the equity in sport and then making it very, very interesting for the teams.
So from Lithuania, is it a pure Lithuanian team, or is it just a Lithuanian boat, or how would your team look like? I mean, you might not have the 10 people already, I don't know.
No, it happened that the Regimantas, the chairman of YPO, owns the boat, and that's a really nice link. But no, there's for sure in Lithuania there's not that much of experience, and we see it as an international project, combining as many people from as many countries as you can, just to having it like really global thing. It's part of the marketing thing, but also just trying to be part of the whole global community and impact as many regions as you can by sending and translating your message.
Okay, here goes the link, because we have also Regimantas here with us. Dear YPO, you're chair of the Lithuanian chapter, awesome, and you have acquired one of the boats, is it? And now Rokas has the pressure on from you, is it?
A little bit.
So that's beautiful. That means we will have a YPO boat racing. So YPOs can cheer you up, 28,000 people behind you, and the families and the kids, so congratulations, that's good stuff. Well done here.
That's part of the international approach. That's part of international approach with the crew as well, just to have as many people as IPO is also a very global company. So having sailors from all over the world, that's also going to be working towards the goal as IPO.
So this is beautiful. Now, if we put that in the context of YPO also, and then a little bit back to you, Richard. So within YPO, of course, we have been talking in networks. So there's the Planet Action Network, a young network, not even a year old, now 1,000 members. And spouses, so it's a part of the impact networks. Then we have the Water Sports Network. I mean, this is where your link Regimantas came, yeah? Yeah, it's the race and the hobby and the boat. And then also we'll talk to some of the business networks, specifically the plastics network, plastic industry, saying, you mentioned the microplastics. So, I mean, plastic is very easy to recycle many times. The problem is, it's ending up in the ocean. So maybe there are some some portions we can link it. And then, of course, it's a great event. So we are seeing how YPO can support Regimantas and Rukas on your end and this side. Also, Boris, as you're not competing, we're all on your side, so it's very good. Now, Richard, a quick question. What are the actions? YPOers, we run businesses. So we are looking at very often as a business as a force for good. So what do you think is the message for CEOs, entrepreneurs, YPOers, in terms of what you do and how we can help and support? Because you have summits, you have workshops all around ocean health. So what would be an angle you would say for YPO, or why should we show up? I know it's a sexy sport. I know it's tough, but just from a ocean health point of view.
Yeah, no, it's very relevant, and I think what our interaction are with the stakeholders, which are business around the world, it's public and politicians around the world, and also with civil society, and we come from sport. So it is a platform that involves so many stakeholders from around the planet, and that it in itself means that if we can create awareness, if we can engage with people, that will lead to change. And because we have this world tour, we go to 10 countries in 9 months, it becomes very efficient. And if you experience it, you will get energized like by nothing else. So I think, and just an example, we had 96,000 corporate guests around the stopovers last time out of 2.5 million. It's no other sport event that has so many corporate guests. And that is because it is a unique platform for meetings, for networking, for thought leadership activities, and for also enjoying sports, because this is sport at the very highest level with some of the best athletes in the world. So it's an unique combination of all these things that you will find fitting with whatever business you are in. If it's B2C, consumer goods, the biggest B2B companies like Ericsson has been in this and been tremendously happy. So, and Volvo, of course, both Volvo cars and Volvo trucks. So there is something for everyone in this, for sure.
So Boris, question on your side. I mean, to race around the world alone and to recognize, oh, the ice is melting, it takes longer, you know, I'm running short on food. I mean, one thing is the tough side in terms of, you know, being alone and doing it. But why do you do that? Why do you expose yourself? What is the thrill about it? What is it made you do, you know, world records and unusual things?
I think there are three narrators for myself to what really drives me is one, I grew up with my parents sailing. I was 6 weeks old when they put the little baby between the sails in the front of the little 6-meter steel boat to go past the my father was a school teacher. They had a lot of time, more than most entrepreneurs, I guess, on holidays and weekends, and they would at low tide sit in the sandbank and the kid could play around. So I grew up with the sea. I'm a seaman in my heart. The racing is a thrill because, as you say, it's very complete. It is a human endeavor, and it's a technology game. It's really the foremost end of technology. I think this yachting industry is the biggest customer or consumer of high modulus carbon in the world. It's completely unimaginable for the normal public what we do with these technological miracles, these boats, full of electronics and hydraulics. And then it's also nature. So it's very complete. It's a human nature technology, and then and the teamwork, of course, around it. But really, one thing that struck me when I was like in my middle class life as a youngster, was 16 or so, I read these books about my heroes, like the famous sailors. And probably you were sailing at the time, and I had these fascinating pictures of the Southern Ocean, the icebergs, the Cape Horn, the albatrosses. And then these were all, they were writing their life stories, and they were all coming from very simple backgrounds, working themselves up. So this sport of sailing is not an elite sport. It's a very tough, and it's not kind of rich kids playing, right? And this story from reading like Ellen MacArthur, for example, or others, working up and they sleep in a container built their boat themselves, their first one. And Ellen MacArthur was 16, she was saving her pocket money at the school cafeteria, and then did a trip around England. And then she became Dame Ellen MacArthur in England and world famous. So this is that kind of a dream capitalism story. If you want to achieve something, really, then you can do it. And that stuck with me. I thought, this dream of the Vendée Globe, this kind of, I want to see if this is true for myself.
Wow, this is great. So the link here, Rokas and Regimantas, maybe you can join me quickly here, because I have to ask you the question. You know, I know you're an entrepreneur, and now you have several hats. But why do you buy a boat to run it, and now you have to raise significant money? But there's a portion of your money going into, but also there are no sponsors, which is a little message to our YPO friends here. Not soliciting, of course. He doesn't, I do for him. So, Regimantas, why did you do this? What led you?
Okay, I think, to be honest, in the beginning, I never dreamed so big. And just becoming a member of YPO and meeting fellows IPOers, it came through. In the beginning, it was that, okay, it was more or less both for the Lithuania, because Lithuania were not like having big shores, big seas, and the things. That, okay, we can, having Rokas in the first edition in the ocean race, it was one good. Then to have a boat, it was another thing. But then meeting the IPOers, let's dream big. I mean, this boat, it doesn't belong to me anymore in a way, because we do have support from our president to this event, to this race. I mean, and having understanding that we can do more in the world, because I do believe that IPO is the organization who change perceptions, the things to be done. I mean, we can talk a lot of things about the world climate, we can talk a lot of things about, you know, ocean health and the things, but who can do? It's us, in general. It's us entrepreneurs, it's us IPOers, you know, who really can do this impact to the world and change the world.
So that's, I mean, here's the connection, you know, on being, you know, putting up the bar high to get there, doing something about it. And of course, the exciting part is not only the boat itself and what you're doing, and it's a bold vision, but also the link to the ocean health. And this is really something where we can all embrace. So I'm glad to have you all here. I'm excited about. You will hear more within YPO, throughout YPO, about the ocean race and the YPO ocean race. Yeah, with Rokas, pressure on you, you know, you better win this race, you know. We're all looking at you. Congrats, Regimantas, on your end. And last but not least, really excited, Richard, about that link we're building here to get things done on the ocean, to make a difference. You know, not just awareness, but I think, you know, as YPOers, gets shit done. You know, I'm sorry for my French. So this is where really the opportunity lies. So thank you, everybody.
No, and I must express my gratitude for inviting us here today. And I think what you are showing is really true leadership. You and also the YPO in taking this step and really addressing ocean health through the ocean race, because it's pretty bold. And this morning, as I had breakfast here and the sun came up and I looked at the mountains, I realized that looking at the mountains and looking at the ocean, to me, it evokes the same emotion. So the closeness to nature it's very present here in Davos, and it will be for you around the world for sure.
So to all YPOers here in Davos, beyond in the world, stay tuned. Ocean Race is coming, and YPO has a deep connection and the best friend racing. And Boris, on your end, also congrats really to your latest award. And we will be watching very carefully you and your team. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for joining us.